Hello and welcome. Tonight, legal fireworks set to begin on the outcome of the 2023 presidential election. The Labour Party and its presidential candidate Peter Obi formally filed a petition challenging the victory of Senator Bola. Local government area of the state urges INEC to declare the results according to how the people voted.
On business news tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari approves exemption for 5% excise duty for telecommunications sector.
On sports news tonight, Coach Salisu Yusuf says the Olympic Eagles are very much up to the task of grabbing one of the tickets to this year's Africa Under-23 Cup of Nations when they host Guinea in Wednesday's qualifier in Abuja.
And from Abuja, democracy has come to stay in Nigeria, declares U.S. Ambassador Beth Leonard, says the nation's democratic experience is the most consequential in Africa.
And in international news from London, Japan's Prime Minister has met Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in a rare unannounced visit that signals Tokyo's emphatic support against Russia's invasion.
The legal battle over the outcome of the presidential election seems set to begin as the Labour Party and its candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, have formally filed a petition at the Election Petition Tribunal, Abuja, challenging the declaration of Senator Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress as the winner of the presidential election. The petitioners are praying for the tribunal to declare that the president-elect was not duly elected by a majority of the lawful votes cast at the election. They also want, among other prayers, an order mandating INEC to retrieve the certificate of return issued to the APC candidate and issue a fresh one to Mr. Obi.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, conducted the presidential and National Assembly elections and has declared Bola Ahmed Tinubu the president-elect. The declaration has since been rejected by his opponents, Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party and Peter Obi of the Labour Party, who have vowed to challenge the outcome of the election in court. The failure of INEC to upload election results to the INEC Result Viewing Portal, IREV, in real time using the BVAS are some of the reasons why Mr. Obi is challenging the presidential election and the declaration of Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress as the winner of the presidential election. Parts of his demands at the Election Petition Tribunal include he wants an order mandating INEC to retrieve the certificate of return issued to Mr. Tinubu and issue a fresh one to him. Alternatively, Mr. Obi is asking the tribunal to make an order cancelling the election and compelling INEC to conduct a fresh election at which Tinubu, Shetima and the APC will not participate. The petitioner specifically alleged that at the time of the elections, Tinubu was not qualified to contest. They also argued that the election was invalid by reason of corrupt practices and non-compliance with the provision of the Electoral Act of 2022. Similarly, the Action Alliance and the Allied People's Movement have equally lodged separate petitions to challenge the outcome of the presidential election. The candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, is expected to file his own petition before midnight of March the 21st, when the deadline will elapse. Section 132, subsection 7 and 8 of the Electoral Act of 2022 stipulates that election petitions must be filed within 21 days after the date of the declaration of results of the elections, and the tribunal shall deliver a judgment in writing within 180 days from the date of the filing of the petition. Section 134 of the 2022 Electoral Act provides that a party who intends to challenge the process and outcome of an election can do so on the following grounds. 1. A person whose election is questioned was at the time of the election not qualified to contest the election. 2. The election was invalid by reason of corrupt practices and non-compliance with the provisions of this Act. And 3. The respondent was not duly elected by the majority of the lawful votes cast at the election.
Meanwhile, the president-elect Bola Tinubu is appealing to all Nigerians to embrace the healing process now that the election cycle is completed. Senator Tinubu, who made the appeal in a congratulatory statement, admonished all governors-elect and state lawmakers-elect to be magnanimous in victory, while those who lost should have large hearts for tolerance and respect for the greater interest of the nation. He also reassured Nigerians of his resolve to ensure inclusiveness in governance for the attainment of the nation's full potential under his watch. The former Lagos State governor, however, condemned the violence and some infractions recorded during and after the elections in some states, saying, "Elections should be a celebration of our maturing democracy and freedom of choice, and ought not to be moments of grief. I am particularly pained by cases of ethnic slurs, which are capable of creating needless mischaracterization reported in some locations. My appeal is for us to rise above our differences." He maintained that the consolidation of democratic governance at the sub-national level will bring more development and improved quality of life to the masses. For the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, the 2023 presidential election was fair and credible. Speaking at the resumption of the House of Representatives, Mr. Gbajabiamila says it is time for the country to move forward. He also congratulated INEC for ensuring that the nation experienced significant improvement in the conduct of elections since the return to democracy in 1999.
The declaration of results will not by itself suffice to assuage the passions or calm the tensions aroused by this electoral competition. For that, we need time and the deliberate efforts of political, religious, and social and economic leaders acting in recognition of the fact that while elections will come and go, our highest imperative remains the progress of Nigeria and the prosperity of her people. I wish to thank the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission and all the staff of the commission for their hard work and commitment to ensuring free and fair elections across the country. I wish to also express my gratitude to the men and women of the security agencies who ensured the worst predictions of crisis and conflict did not come to pass. Any objective assessment of these elections will show marked improvements from prior outings. This is not to suggest perfection, but to acknowledge evident progress in our collective efforts to ensure elections we can all be proud of. Amendments to our nation's electoral laws by the legislature, pronouncements by the judiciary, and operational reforms by the Electoral Commission have significantly improved elections in Nigeria since 1999. The amendments to the Electoral Act by the 9th National Assembly have been particularly instrumental in improving the elections process through the use of technology tools to facilitate voter accreditation and transmission of results.
As the people of Abia State continue to wait for the final results of the governorship election in the state, the Labour Party candidate, Mr. Alex Oti, has called on INEC to do the right thing by declaring the results of last Saturday's elections in the state according to how the people voted. Mr. Oti, who addressed a press conference today in Abuja, alleged that the state government has perfected plans to manufacture figures from Obingwa local government area, which is why the results of the local government have not been announced till now.
We believe that INEC will do the right thing. All the other local governments that have been declared use the BVAS machine for accreditation. And it is our firm belief that INEC will not change the rules in the middle of the game. So we are calling on our people, the Labour Party, and the Abia people to remain calm and wait on INEC to release the results, or to finish their review and release the results. The other important thing is that we're also thanking INEC. Like we have always said, we believe that the BVAS is a game changer, particularly if there is a will to use it. And what has happened this time around is that the BVAS has demystified Obingwa local government in Abia State. You will recall that in 2015, when I contested for the first time, PDP produced 82,000 votes from Obingwa to upturn the victory that Abia people gave us. This time around, they want to do the same thing. But the Beavers has proved that there are no more than 30,000 votes in Obingwa.
Meanwhile, hundreds of residents and supporters of the Labour Party in Abia State have staged a peaceful protest in Umuahia, the state capital, calling on the Independent National Electoral Commission to immediately declare Dr. Alex Otti the winner of the governorship poll, having scored the highest number of votes in last Saturday's governorship election in the state. Carrying placards with various inscriptions, the protesters gathered around the INEC office in Umuahia, maintaining that the result so far represents the wishes and aspirations of the entire people of Abia State. They said that the Labour Party candidate is already leading with about 90,000 votes, with the 16 local government results collated so far. Therefore, Obingwa local government area remaining with less than 27,000 accredited voters as captured in INEC's data should not prevent the electoral umpire from declaring Dr. Otti the winner. To River State, where Governor Nyesom Wike says the result of the governorship poll in the state is the people's way of showing how much the PDP has impacted on the lives of the people. Governor Wike, in a statewide broadcast, thanked the people of the state for voting for the party's candidates in the governorship and state assembly elections. He also assures opposition parties in the state that the governor-elect, Siminalai Fubara, is ready to work with them for the advancement of rivers.
The truth is that the PDP ran an effective political campaign. We went to all 319 wards to sell our candidates. We flagged up and commissioned impactful projects throughout our campaign, which excited the people. Our people are happy and invested their hopes in the PDP because we performed and did the near impossible to advance the state's development. We delivered impactful projects after project across the state. There's no local government area would not impact with infrastructural revolution. Indeed, we performed to the extent that we were judged by President Buhari and the federal government as the best state government in infrastructural delivery. We did not advance the cause of an Ogoni, Calabari, or Ikore government. We were for a reverse government. We were for consolidation and continuity, which message resonated and inspired the people to vote for us. Thank you for speaking loudly and clearly that River State belongs to the PDP. I thank you again for trusting me. Thank you for not disappointing me. Thank you for acting on our request to return the PDP to consolidate and continue from where we will stop. On behalf of our party, I assure you that we will fulfill every campaign promise to the people of River State. We are also willing to work with the opposition to move River State forward. I have also received assurance from the governor-elect of his willingness to work with the opposition to advance the interests of the state.
In part two, after the break, PDP governorship candidate in Ogun State leads a protest against the outcome of Saturday's election to the INEC office in Abeokuta, while other parties which lost out in the elections also kick against the results of the polls. Please join us again. Peter Obi formally filed petition challenging the victory of Senator Bola Tinubu. It's time for healing process to begin. President-elect Bola Tinubu calls on Nigerians to forget their differences as he pledges inclusiveness in governance. The Labour Party governorship candidate in Abia State, Dr. Alex Otti, alleges plan to manipulate the election outcome in Obingwa local government area of the state, urges INEC to declare the results according to how the people voted. Reactions continue to trail the outcome of the state elections across the country. While some states witnessed pockets of violence, others are vowing to go to court. This next report chronicles some of the reactions that greeted the outcome of Saturday's governorship and state houses of assembly election.
The Saturday, March 18th governorship and state assembly elections across 28 states are over as the electoral umpire declares winners in most of the states.
2023 governorship election.
The exercise was not devoid of drama and disputes as the opposition fought the declaration of results in some states such as Kano, Nasarawa, Kaduna and Ogun states.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, established to be an impartial body, acted otherwise on 20th March 2023, when it unlawfully declared and returned Abba Kabir Yusuf of the New Nigerian People's Party, NNPP, as the winner of the election in suspicious circumstances.
2 words alone was uttered and inflated to beat us by surprise, or by hook or by crook, after results were collected and none from our respective polling unit. So we are not surprised that anyone who wants to occupy your place can do anything.
Although some are taking to the streets to protest their displeasure over the outcome, others are choosing the option of seeking legal redress.
We are going to stay here until we are addressed by the officials of INEC. And our contention is that the measures by which other states have been treated and they are allowed to have runoffs, Ogun State should be measured in the same vein.
So many irregularities, but petitions have been written on them, and to the extent that they are material and they may affect the outcome, I'm sure the regular INEC will look into this.
What we saw yesterday was a bureaucracy, thuggery, hooliganism at its finest. A government by the thugs, for the thugs, by the thugs. And this cannot be acceptable. It is a wrong precedent to set, because the next time people want to participate in elections, they will believe it must be violence, it must be war.
We've seen how the TPEX, some of our result sheets, where we've got 403, the TPEX is 0, it's turned into 43, is everywhere. And some like that, you know, and all of this. But we understand how this is. We've collected enough evidence for us to enter the next process.
In some states, the outcome of the exercise is greeted with violence, even as some of the candidates try to calm their supporters.
The election in Bauchi State was characterized by primitive violence. We consider the figures that were released as totally unacceptable.
The party therefore wished to oppose the outcome of the election as announced, while urging our members to remain peaceful and calm as we study and review the result before taking appropriate action.
As candidates in states where election results have been announced as sorting themselves out, the fate of governorship candidates in Abia and Enugu states remain undecided as INEC suspends the collation exercise in the states.
In Sokoto State, the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, has alleged that 4 of its members have been killed by persons suspected to be members of the All Progressives Congress since the announcement of the results of the state governorship and state assembly elections. Addressing the press conference in Sokoto, the state chairman of the PDP, Aliu Goronyo, also accused the Minister of Police Affairs, Maigari Dingyadi, who is the Director General of the APC Campaign Council in the state, of colluding with security agencies to intimidate members of the party during the election through indiscriminate arrests and detention. According to him, since the election results were announced, political violence in the state has manifested in alarming proportions across all local government areas. Time now to head to the nation's capital, and Linda Akibe is standing by at our Abuja studios. Hello, Linda.
Hello, Ayotunde. Nigeria must not lose sight of its place as the most consequential democracy in Africa, so says the American ambassador, Beth Leonard. The ambassador says while many might be disappointed with the process and are seeking redress in court, Nigerians can be proud that its democracy has come to stay because its leaders leave office when due, as stipulated by the Constitution. She was speaking in an exclusive interview with Channels Television's Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I think you have to look at the where we live in 2023 in West Africa, right? So first of all, it's really consequential because just Nigeria is really consequential, is the largest population and the largest economy. But you look at a West Africa that has coups and people hanging around for a third term, and those here, those standards of the democratic rules of the road are just part of the furniture. Everybody takes it for granted. People leave at the end of their terms. That's really, even despite all the frustrations and hurt hearts, if you will, of the last a couple of weeks with the elections, that really is something to be proud of as a beacon of hope in a larger continental sense. Certainly, yeah, you know, there were a lot of people who were frustrated. It's been an emotional time. Other people are happy and they're celebrating. I think the important thing to focus on is that, you know, there are ways to challenge things that you think went wrong in an election, and the President-elect has acknowledged and encouraged the right to do so, and the two major opposition candidates are, or the three, I think, are in fact taking advantage of those challenges. So, you know, that's why those legal processes are there, and we look forward to seeing those carried out to their conclusion, and we'll go from there.
In Edo State, the police command has arrested 11 suspects in the state for alleged criminal conspiracy, thuggery, being in possession of dangerous weapons, and disturbing public peace in some parts of Bauchi metropolis. This is coming after at least one person is reported dead in Karofin Madaki after thugs attacked the area. The police command is yet to confirm the death, but residents of the area identified the victim as one Ukasha, who they said was stabbed to death. A statement issued by the police public relations officer, SP Ahmed Wakili, indicates that 30 assorted dangerous weapons have been recovered by the police during the raid of the metropolis. To legal matters. The Federal High Court sitting in Ikoyi, Lagos, has adjourned further hearing in the trial of a former governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, and his company, Spotless Investment Limited, over an alleged 6.9 billion naira fraud till May 8, 2023. Justice Chukwujeku Aneke adjourned proceedings after listening to the testimony of a 12th prosecution witness, a former Minister of State for Defense, Senator Musiliu Obanikoro. In his testimony, Senator Obanikoro told the court that he had no document showing that he withdrew the sum of 1.2 billion naira, which he allegedly gave Fayose. During cross-examination by the counsel to the second defendant, Olalekon Ojo's SAN, Senator Obanikoro also said that he never at any time showed the EFCC operatives any document showing that he gave instruction or withdrew the sum of 1.2 billion naira from the Diamond Bank account of a company linked to him, Silver McNamara Limited. Senator Obanikoro, in his previous testimony, had told the court that the sum of 1.2 billion naira was deposited into the account of the company, Silver McNamara, to fund clandestine security operations to prevent terrorist activities in Lagos State in 2 installments. The former terrorist negotiator, Tuku Mamu, has been arraigned before Justice Inyang Ekwo on a 10-count charge bordering on terrorism financing in connection with the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. Mr. Mamu was arrested on September 6th on his way to Saudi Arabia for Lesser Hajj and was detained at Cairo International Airport before being repatriated back to Nigeria. Meanwhile, the president has launched the National Counter-Terrorism Center, a facility he declares would serve as his major infrastructural legacy to the incoming administration to effectively coordinate national security and counter-terrorism efforts. President Buhari made the declaration today during the inauguration of 2 state-of-the-art facilities, including the new office of the National Security Advisor in Abuja, as part of efforts to address the protracted challenge of insecurity, particularly terrorism and violent extremism. Speaking at the inauguration of the 2 facilities, the president noted that his administration has checkmated agitators in the southeast and to a lesser extent the southwest.
These 2 world-class state-of-the-art facilities will optimize our efforts at addressing the newly evolving security challenges in our environment, especially terrorism and violent extremism. The secure and high-tech nature of these offices are designed to enhance our strategic response to a broad range of current and emerging security concerns. This is because we live in an interconnected world and therefore must be able to face and respond to both domestic and global security challenges. Apart from degraded threat of terrorism in the northeast, the government has also curbed a series of armed banditry and kidnapping cases in the northwest and north central zones, which emerged as a result of the scattering of Boko Haram in the northeast and the implosion of Libya in the Maghreb. In addition, agitators in the southeast and to a much lesser extent the southwest, which have been experiencing concerns of separatist tendencies, are being checkmated. Meanwhile, issues of crude oil theft, sea robbery, piracy, and militancy in the South-South are equally being addressed. Most of these threats have transnational linkages, thereby reinforcing the need for regional and international cooperation as critical enablers to enhance our national security. This commissioning is coming as we are gradually winding down this administration. It will therefore serve as a major legacy to provide the incoming administration with the state-of-the-art infrastructure to effectively coordinate our national security and counter-terrorism efforts.
Still ahead on the news at 10, President Buhari approves exemption of 5% excise duty for the telecom sector. That's some business news. Join us again. You're welcome back to the news at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. The Senate is set to constitute a committee to examine the reasons why President Buhari did not assent to 19 constitutional amendment bills sent to him. The President of the Senate, Senator Ahmed Lawan, stated this at the resumption of legislative proceedings today. The upper chamber transmitted to the President 35 constitutional amendment bills passed by the National Assembly and State Houses of Assembly. However, the President assented to 16 out of the 35 constitutional amendment bills last week. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Linda. A news just reaching us says the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and his party, the PDP, have filed their petition at the Presidential Election Petition Court in Abuja. According to a member of Atiku's legal team, Mr. Silas Joseph Onu, the petition was filed today, beating the deadline for the filing of that petition. Once again, the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and his party, the PDP, have filed their petition at the Presidential Election Petition Court in Abuja today. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, has vowed to increase the benchmark interest rate by 50 basis points to 18%. Addressing journalists at the end of the two-day meeting in Abuja, the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, said the committee voted to keep the asymmetric corridor at plus 100 and minus 500 basis points around the MPR. The tightening of the rate, according to the Apex Bank governor, is expected to curtail inflation, currently put at 21%.
It's the second time the Monetary Policy Committee will be holding its meeting this year. Unlike when the meeting was held in January, this is coming at a time when Nigerians are grappling with the effects of the redesigned Naira notes. The central bank governor highlights how activities in the global markets are affecting the domestic economy, while highlighting the role of the bank in the maintenance of both fiscal and monetary policy through its interventions in the real sector.
The bank also released the sum of 23.7 billion under the 1 trillion naira real sector support facility to 8 new real sector projects in agriculture, manufacturing and services. Cumulative disbursements under the real sector facility currently stands at 2.43 trillion, disbursed to 462 projects across the country, comprising 257 manufacturing, 95 agriculture, 97 services, and 13 mining sector projects.
And then he states the key decisions of the Monetary Policy Committee.
The MPC therefore voted as follows. 1. Raise the MPR to 18%. 2. Retain the asymmetric corridor at plus 100 and minus 500 basis points around the MPR. 3. Retain the CRR at 32.5%. And 4. Retain liquidity ratio at 30%.
The central bank, through the Monetary Policy Committee, notes that it is not oblivious to the sufferings of Nigerians, as some of the concerns raised, which include the lack of access to cash and difficulty in network connectivity, amongst others, are being sorted out. He reassures that the nation's commercial banks remain resilient and are contributing their quota to the nation's development.
Committee thoughts called on the other depository corporations, online payment platforms, and other stakeholders to ensure that the prevailing incidence of network failures is overcome in the immediate and short term. This would ensure that the Naira redesign and cash withdrawal policies lead to an improved inroad of the CBN cashless policy program and efficiency of the transmission mechanism of monetary policy.
The bank expects the Nigerian economy to receive some boost following the interventions from the Apex Bank, which is running into trillions of naira. The bank hopes to continue seeking ways to control all inflationary indices, as well as reduce the sufferings faced by Nigerians due to the Naira redesign.
For more on this, I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by Mr. Bismarck Rwani, the CEO of Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you on the news at 10.
Thank you for having me.
So, moving straight into it, of course, you saw that report from the CBN talking about the raising of the MPR, which I believe is now 18%. Well, of course, it is 18%, which I was going to say I believe is the highest ever in the history of the country. But it appears, with all these policies concerning the MPR, getting to to its levels, rising levels. Inflation, however, isn't declining. What's the situation with that? Why are we having this?
You see, like the slides will show in a minute, what we say here is that the MPC decision is what you see is what you get, and what you don't see is what gets you. That's very important to know. So basically what has happened is that is there a relationship between increasing interest rates and curbing inflation? The answer, technically, yes, but it's not all. The reality is that we have increased interest rates cumulatively by about 6.5% altogether, and inflation has actually increased by about 5.6% since that time. Actually, it declined marginally by 0.19 or something in the previous month. So we are back to where we are. But is interest rate the potent tool for curbing inflation? The answer is not necessarily. But we are where we are. This was a candid meeting, sober reflection, but in the end, efforts are not rewarded. Results are what happens. Now, what is happening here? We are being faced with both exogenous risks and endogenous challenges.
I mean, so looking at the concerns there,
the global financial tremor, uneven inflation trend, the global financial tremor is actually because of what has happened in Silicon Valley Bank, the Signature Bank, Republic National Bank, and more than anything else, the tremors that came out of Credit Suisse, which is the second largest Swiss bank. Switzerland is the home of banking. When you keep money in Switzerland, your money is safe. But when Switzerland begins to shake, then the banking system. So we do not know. Are we seeing the end of this? I'm not so sure. Then there's the unintended consequences of the cash crunch.
Exactly.
Right? That has become a problem, right? And then there's political imponderables. We do not know. Yes, the elections have come and gone, but they are still unsettled matters. So we don't know. We hope for the best, right?
We definitely have to hope for the best.
If we now go into the consequences of the cash crunch, what has the cash crunch done? The cash crunch actually took away over $1 trillion out of circulation cash, right? And injected, so there was a gap of about almost 1.7 trillion naira. Now, we brought back, the Supreme Court has ruled, and we brought back everything. Technically speaking, theoretically.
A whole lot of people are still finding it to have access to cash anyway.
That's not what's going to happen right now. People are still squeezed and stretched. And before I come and talk about the impact, let me tell you something that's happened. What we didn't understand when we carried out the analysis was the effect of tips in this society. You go out, you give the security guard 500 naira, you give the somebody at the gate 500 naira, the steward 500 naira, the waiter. That money oiled the economic activity of this country. When cash disappeared and people stopped tipping, then we saw almost a near paralysis, even though the tips came to roughly maybe about 1.9 or 2 billion naira a day across the country. It was infinitesimal, but it oiled the wheels of trade. And that actually brought things to a halt. But what is the impact of this increase? One, it has, in a perverse way, it has made the naira stronger. It's traded at 745 today. It's going to increase lending rates to the economy. Bank lending rates will be about 28 to 30% per annum, which are actually cutthroat. Stock prices will probably come down because there's an inverse relationship between stock prices and interest rates. But the signal rate, the MPR is the signaling rate. It is not the effective rate. The effective rates of savings in this country, which is the treasury bill rates and savings rates, are still way, way below. And the target for inflation in Nigeria is between 6 to 9%. You are now at almost 22%. So in reality, you are way off your target. So I think the reality is that we have to deal with where we are and do that. But Nigeria is not alone in this process. If you go on to the next slide, you'll find that other African countries, and globally actually, inflation is at record high, right? So we look at it, what went down has gone up. I'm just explaining this to say monthly inflation is 1.71, core inflation is 18.84, but food inflation is 24.35. In spite of the cash crunch, headline inflation rose by 0.09, and monthly and core inflation actually declined, while food inflation. Now let's go to the basket. This is where it becomes interesting. A bag of garri has gone up from 13,000 naira to 20,000 naira, 54% higher. Tomatoes, on the other hand, because it's perishable, came down from 22,000 to 19,000, 14% decline, because without cash, you can't buy it, and then the tomatoes get bad, so they sold it off at it. Beans, on the other hand, which is more inelastic, went up from 36,000 to 56,000 naira. And a crate of eggs went up marginally from 2,300 to 2,400. But a bag of rice actually, interestingly, came down after the Christmas and everything from 43,000 to 40,000. But that's how it affects you, generally speaking. Now, if you move on forward to see what next, right? Interest rate has its limitations. Before April, inflation was 16.82. In February 2023, it was 21.91. So cumulatively, we've increased interest rates by 6.5. But what has happened to inflation has gone up by 5.09. So there's this negative thing that we're seeing there.
Oh, definitely.
Why? High energy costs, supply shock, and forex scarcity. Now let's see what next. Finally, see what happens next is that Nigerians are expecting,
especially for the ordinary citizen now.
For the ordinary citizen, that's why I talked about the bag of rice and all that. These are African countries, but you see South Africa. But now let's taking a hard look at subsidies. The next administration, after inauguration and even before inauguration, is going to have to deal with these petrol subsidies, fertilizer subsidies, subsidies in the money market, where you are borrowing money at 5% intervention money and placing that same money in the market at maybe 18, 20, 30% of buying us, then foreign exchange subsidy. Just today, the spot market, official spot market went all the way to, settlement went all the way to 5.45.
We'll definitely
while the power market is at 7.45, we don't know. So we see that, and this is where it really affects everybody. Is it going to happen before inauguration, or is it going to happen after inauguration? Whether we like it or not, it's something that we have to deal with.
Something we definitely have to deal with, and we'll definitely keep our tabs on that one, Mr. Alfred Ruwane.
Quite frankly, the best, or maybe the worst is yet to come. We don't know.
But thank you so much for your thoughts there on the news at 10, Mr. Bismarck Ruwane, for that one. Moving on now, gaining the reputation of being one of the most exclusive automobile brands in Nigeria, well, GAC, or GAC Motors, has launched the second GStyle Showroom in the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja. Well, the launch of the showroom in Abuja represents yet another significant turning point in the development and extension of the GAC network across Nigeria. Well, the management of the company believes this facility will complement the first in Lagos.
A leading automobile manufacturer, GAC Motor, opens a GStyle showroom in the nation's capital, Abuja. The facility showcases the flourishing and vibrant African contemporary masterpieces displayed by indigenous art connoisseurs and distinctive aesthetic versions of the GAC Motor.
It is an art gallery for the car to show. Secondly, you will see the beauty of the G-style were infused from different animals. So you had the arts that represent Africa. Then you had the modern building that represent the architecture style. Then you had the green environment to make the people visit the showroom. You feel peace and beauty.
The company also launched the pre-sale of the all-new GS8, a premium SUV that was created with the intent of meeting the high luxury requirements of business leaders on a budget.
Just 40 million, you have all we have been talking about the whole of today. You have a 540-degree camera, that's six camera system in the car. It comes with independent suspension, like I said, by McPherson. This vehicle is also one of the best interior of SUV vehicles around the world today. And when you have the opportunity to see the car, it comes with a 14.1-inch infotainment system that gives you the ability to be able to interact with the vehicle and do amazing things.
Beyond simply making sales and earning income and revenue, the GAC Motor brand encourages cross-sectional sustainable growth through the development of infrastructure, jobs, and even partnerships, of which one of such is with the Nigerian Football Federation.
They used to support us with some financial support that we do manage our national teams, and also they used to support us with some vehicles that we use. The chief coach of the Super Eagles, the technical director, the general secretary, and myself are using the vehicles provided by the GAC. So it's a very good partnership that we are looking forward to even see how we can do more about it.
The Abuja GAC G-Style Showroom, they say, will be a testament to the company's commitment to excellence, creativity, and innovation.
Business News is up next with Ann Waldo.
Thank you, Ayatunde. Hello and welcome to Business News. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the exemption of telecommunications sector from payment of 5% excise earlier approved by the federal government. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Mr. Issa Pantami, made this announcement at a media briefing in Abuja. He explains that the president reached the decision following a meeting of the Presidential Review Committee on Excise Duty, which he chairs. Let's head to the equities market now. It recorded its first positive close this week following a rate hike by the central bank. Kelly Egiga tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report.
Just as we anticipated, the bull makes a return to the market, and this is despite the low turnover at the close of the bell. Take a look at the activity charts and the volume there. We do have it in 127 million value, of course, at 1.58 billion naira. And of course, we do have the deals in 2000s. Away from that, the all-share index also picked up a bit of a momentum, rising with a 0.03% uptick in today's trading session as Lafarge and Zenith Bank came to the rescue. But let's check out some of the key indexes and sectors, as most key indexes were in the green, and it's no surprise we see that positive performance in Zenith and Lafarge, payments, the banking and industrial goods counters, while the insurance index, of course, saw the biggest gains. We do have it at 0.11%, and the banking sector, of course, at 0.36%, of course, insurance 1.3%. And the gains, of course, in the insurance counter was due to the investors' interest in penny stocks, Link Assurance and Coronation Insurance, of course, which pushed them to the top of the leaderboard. And of course, with stocks ending a 6-day losing streak and the 50 basis point interest rate hike by the Central Bank of Nigeria. That's the country's apex bank. The question is, can the momentum for equities be sustained? We will find out tomorrow. And that does it for us here on the Stock Market Report. At this time, I am Kelly Egiga. It's back to you.
And that's business news. I'm Anne Mwawadu. It's back to you, Ayatunde.
Many thanks, Anne. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will honor his guest, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's invitation to take part virtually in the G7 summit planned for May in Ukraine, in Hiroshima, beg your pardon. Well, here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Japan's Prime Minister has met Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, a rare unannounced visit that signaled Tokyo's emphatic support against Russia's invasion. Fumio Kishida arrived in the capital of Kyiv to voice support and solidarity with Ukraine following the invasion by Russian forces more than a year ago. It's in contrast to China, whose President Xi Jinping visited the Kremlin for a second day. The two presidents shook hands and stood side by side for the playing of the national anthems before heading into talks which focused on the Ukraine crisis and Russia's deepening economic ties with China. Ukraine's defense ministry has said an explosion in the north of the annexed Crimean region has destroyed Russian missiles being transported by rail. Pictures show huge explosions lighting up the night sky. The Russian-installed head of the city of Jankoy said the area had been attacked by drones. Ukraine announced the explosions but did not explicitly say it was behind the attack. Here, eyewitness footage showing a flash of light in the sky before the sound of an explosion. If confirmed, it would be a rare foray by Ukraine's military into Crimea, which has been annexed since 2014. Sri Lanka's president says that his country was no longer a bankrupt nation after the International Monetary Fund approved a nearly $3 billion bailout for the crisis-hit economy. In a televised address, Ranil Wickremesinghe said that import restrictions would be gradually rolled back. The president's supporters set off fireworks in the streets of Colombo to celebrate the IMF's bailout approval. The first $330 million tranche of the bailout will be received in the next 2 days. Ethiopia's government has rejected a statement by the United States alleging that members of its forces, along with Eritrean and Amharan forces, committed war crimes during the 2-year war. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs called the US statement selective and inflammatory, saying the partisan and divisive approach from the US is ill-advised.
Men, women and children were killed.
On Monday, the United States said it had determined that all warring parties had committed war crimes. It also accused the Ethiopian and Eritrean Defense Forces, as well as Amhara forces, of committing crimes against humanity, including murder, rape, and other forms of sexual violence. Senegalese opposition leader Ousmane Sonko has accused the country's president of leading a strategy of terror to drive out political opponents. Sonko says he survived a brutal attack and also alleges that police sprayed him with a toxic liquid and that he has sent his clothes abroad for testing. President Macky Sall has yet to comment on Mr. Sonko's statement. Sonko's supporters have frequently clashed with police in recent weeks, causing roadblocks and starting fires in protest at a libel court case against him. A damning report has found institutional racism, misogyny and homophobia within the Metropolitan Police and suggested the force could be broken up if it fails to improve. Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley has accepted the findings and systemic failings. Officers provided harrowing testimony about how they were treated by colleagues. The report found complaints were likely to be turned against ethnic minority officers, with black officers 81% more likely to be in the misconduct system than white colleagues.
We've let Londoners down and we've let our own front line down, and this report paints that vividly. And as I've said several times, I'm deeply sorry for that. I can't say I've reduced the risk of a bad officer to zero yet, but every day we're rooting people out and we're making progress. And I'm going to reduce that risk to an absolute minimum so the people of London can have faith and trust in our people.
Trust in the police has been hugely damaged by the things that we've discovered. Everybody's trust, but what we need to do is now make sure that that won't be repeated, that we can regain people's trust. And I know that the police commissioner is committed to doing that, is committed to making the changes. There are already some changes underway at the moment, by the way. It's not just in London, across the country.
And a huge fire in Burlington in New Jersey has burned a large church to the ground. Its roof collapsed as more than 100 firefighters and emergency personnel battled the flames. A local pastor described the incident as a devastating loss. There were no immediate reports of injuries, and it is not yet clear what ignited the blaze. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. National Under-23 head coach Salisu Yusuf says the Olympic Eagles are very much up to the task of grabbing one of the tickets to this year's Africa Under-23 Cup of Nations in Morocco when they host Guinea in Wednesday's first leg clash at the Moshood Abiola Stadium in Abuja. Well, the return leg of that game has been scheduled for Morocco on Tuesday, March the 28th. And veteran striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic is hoping to play in the Euros next year despite his age, as the Swedish squad prepared for its first qualifier against Belgium. The 41-year-old is already set to break Italian goalkeeper Dino Zoff's age record in a Euro qualifier of 40 years and 90 days set way back in 1983. And the main news again. The Labour Party and its presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, today formally filed a petition challenging the victory of President-elect Senator Bola Tinubu. The PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and the PDP have also filed their petition challenging the victory of Senator Bola Tinubu at the Presidential Election Petition Court. And President-elect Senator Tinubu has called on Nigerians to forget their differences as he pledged to begin the healing process in the country. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Good night.